Louis Roof and his wife Darlene. Louis is Janet C.'s brother, and they were raised here. Darlene, were you raised here?
Yes,
You were too. I know Jim's an import, but but we have the Roof, part of the Roof family here tonight, and they're going to be our chat group. So if you can get yourself situated so you can see them and think about what they say, and if you have any questions, we'll open to that. Thank Louis and Darlene for the donation they made tonight. A book by Eisner.
yeah, Phil Eisner.
And it's called Everything I Needed to Know I Learned on the Farm. Eisner's lived west of the high school. And Darlene has brought a bunch of garden club scrapbooks or
Yeah,
things.
scrapbooks.
Yeah, and we have the music club, we have the women's club, but we didn't have the garden club, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I'll turn it over to whoever wants to chat first.
One of you four started.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Siegel.
What, we've been here for 100 years, and but look around the room, and kids that we went to school with, AJ, and well, his son wasn't there yet, but anyway, and Corky, and
Carolyn.
Carolyn, she was ahead of us in
Right.
school.
Well, she was in
I was
Janet's
with Joanne.
class. Yeah.
So for this group, we're pretty young, I don't know why. But we grew up on, Jeanette and I did, and she went to college and changed her name from Jeanette to Janet. And, but she was always Jeanette at home because we couldn't pronounce it. But anyhow, grew up on Clinton. That's where Darlene and I live now. And we tore the old house down and built a retirement place. And I don't know.
Tell
What was life like back then, and how did you meet Darlene and all of this?
This is a famous story, and Darlene will get mad at me for telling it, but anyway, if anybody, AJ would remember, and Corky, the gymnasium at Chowchilla, the fans were upstairs. It was like you played basketball down in a pit. And anyhow, I guess I was 8th grade or freshman, and after, I must have been a freshman, but after I was on the C team, and we got up in the stands, and I was sitting up there watching the game and everything, and there was this girl in front of me that had a Coke spilled on her, and when she stood up, she bent over, and I said, "Oh, golly, she sure has a nice rear end. I think I really like her."
Did you know her before then? Do you know
Well,
who she was?
No.
No.
Oh.
But anyway, 7 years after our first date, we got married, and that was 57 years ago.
Good, good.
And,
Okay.
Tell something about the book, about Byron's book.
Yeah, Byron's book. Byron Eisner was in our high school class, and that wrote that book. It's a book of short stories, and he published it, I guess, several years ago. He had articles published in the Country magazine and Reminisce, and a few of them, and I guess the second printing that I had copies of it from his daughter, and he's passed away now, but anyhow, his book of short stories, and it's, like it says, he learned it on the farm, and it's all about the community and his friends that he grew up with, and of course I'd like to push the book because my name's in it several times. And there was one story about corn on the cob that was too tough to eat that he gave to a German-Russian couple, older couple that lived next or close by, that and they made some dish out of it that was an old German-Russian dish. So
Okay,
So-
Darlene? Oh, go ahead.
What nationality are you?
Heinz 57, I guess. No, my father was, our father was German, not German-Russian, just real German. And our mother was Scotch and English.
Were they here already, or did they come?
No, way back in the northwest corner of Missouri, they had a little school in, what was it, Watson? But anyway, our mother graduated as a teacher and went to this one schoolhouse to teach school. Well, she needed a place to stay. Well, the Roop farm was nearby, and the two boys were off to France in World War I. And so she stayed there. When they came home from after the war, our father decided his brother was going to be the farmer, and he, as I'll probably get part of the story wrong, and Jeanette will correct me, but anyhow, our father came out to Viola area and worked and ended up sending a letter back or whatever, and our mother very bravely got on a train, rode all the way out to Reno, and our dad went up to Reno and they met and got married, and the rest is history. Although they did go back to Missouri for a few years, I don't know how many, and in 1935 they'd had it back there, and the Depression coming on, and so they headed back to California. And my mother was pregnant with me. So I'm and a younger sister are the only Californian people. The rest are, I don't know.
Joe was California.
Oh, okay. Anyhow,
Got them mixed up.
Janet, what do you have to add?
Well,
Nice and loud so everybody around can hear you.
I think he's about told you that
How
story.
many sisters and brothers?
Well, there was Joe, and he worked in Kerman for a while at the railroad, and then he moved on and ended up in Fresno. But and then my sister Mary Lou, and then I was the next one, and Louie, and then Alina was our little sister. And
Can you describe anything about how life was back then?
well, it,
I can't tell a lot of the stories because they were so. But like AJ and well, a lot of you that are here can, things were bad back there in those days. We were poor folks, and and we never ventured south of the railroad tracks. But things were so good though. I can remember scraping up a nickel and walking down to Madera Avenue to the store there, and getting a little tiny fourth pint or whatever it was of ice cream for a nickel, and I took a spoon with me and I ate it on the way home.
Didn't share?
well, we used to go to that little store that later on was Epperson's, and get a candy bar and eat it on the way home. We would have most of the time we would walk back and forth the 3/4 of a mile to the high school.
There was a store across the street from the high school, that was Epperson's. And then up on the corner.
Before it was Epperson's, it was,
Patterson,
what?
was Patterson?
The Patterson of
Oh, Pat Patterson.
Yeah,
Pat Patterson, yeah.
Did
And,
Roth's have it for a while?
I'd forgotten about.
yes,
Roth.
Henry Roth had it, and Elliott was the name that when I bought ice cream from him back then.
Pat
Who had
Patterson.
that when we were in school?
Pat Patterson also.
Yeah.
Was it ever boys market?
Who?
No, no.
Boys.
No, that was on Belmont.
Louis, who had that while we were in school?
This advertisement in the Kerman News, Kerman Cub, the high school paper, says Roth Smart Market. Complete line of frozen foods, ice cream, groceries, vegetables, meats, novelties, drugs. The bright spot across from the high school.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, now, there was a Toner's Market up on the corner of Shields. Was that there too at the time?
Well,
Yeah.
it was Miller's to begin with.
Which Miller?
Well, it was Bud
Harry-
Miller's
Harry
father.
Miller.
Harry.
Harry.
Was it Harry? You were across the street.
Yeah. Harry Miller, and they were all married, the ones that owned the Toners and different ones, was all married to the same sisters, line of
Right.
sisters.
Yeah, right.
Well, then,
Oh, wait, I had one I want to tell him. I went speared fish with your dad out by Fireball, Preacher Brian and Hobart Weatherston and all of them. He took me as a kid, and we speared fish on the sandbar when he come up with salmon.
Oh, yeah.
That's many years ago.
To about 1942,
No,
after
yeah.
they built the dam, and the salmon couldn't go any further than that. So anyway, they opened up spearing. And at 7 years old, I speared a 35-pound salmon that dragged me down the river. My dad had to catch me and pull me out because you had to, anyway.
My gosh.
And I was more or less an orphan, but my father had died one time. And so all these people, his dad, Weatherson, Preacher Brian, they took me along to go spear fish. And there were so many salmon coming in, if I didn't go, they'd give my mother a couple of cheap canned salmon. We eat salmon forever, it seemed like.
oh, wow.
At Mendoza Dam, they were so thick below the dam, it looked like you could have walked across water on them.
Really?
Now they sound like
That's right. That's true.
This paper also has an advertisement for Steffen's service station.
It was.
What?
Where was it?
The corner of White's Bridge and Madera.
Northeast corner.
And Steve Supanovich was telling me the other day that a lot of the kids hung out there with because of Rudy's son was in the class.
Yeah.
Along this line about the store, we had 7th, 8th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, all at the school. And so Gene Bachman, they said you can't go across the street. Well, he called Fred Noby, come out, and he got on top of school with a bullhorn. Don't go back to class, don't go back to class. And all the 7th, 8th graders didn't go back to class just about, but the rest of us did. And he had the Fred Noby out taking pictures and everything, Gene Bachman, and he's been a rebel rouser ever since.
What year was that paper?
What's that?
This was 1948. And the reason I brought it was because it, I happened to have it because it had the picture of my painting in it. That's why I'd saved it. But anyway, it has the May Festival continues to be a big event throughout 34 years. And then it kind of gives the history of some of those years.
Was that the maypole dance at high
the Maple
school?
Yes.
Dance, a May Day, and they had the Queens.
I danced that barefooted. The maple dance.
You weren't supposed to be doing that. That was for the girls only.
I did that.
Said that was girls only, Corky.
Oh, no, we did it with boys. Louis Bensoy, James Henderson, we went, every other one, boy and a girl, boy and a girl.
Those were all the rabble-rousers.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions from either of the group, Janet or Louis?
What year were each of you born?
1935 for Darlene and I, and 33 for...
What?
Year did you, he's asking your year of birth.
33.
Well, you don't ask ladies that question.
In our family, we had every 2 years. Except when I came along, they thought that was perfect, perfection. So it was 4 years before my little sister came.
Then by the time you were 4, they decided it wasn't perfection after all.
That's how fast you can run.
Anyway, Earl Smith Camp was the king in 1935. In 1941, Isabel Belloc ruled the day.
She was beautiful. Pretty.
And I think maybe those are the queens that they had. But the May Day was quite an event. All of the schools came and had maypole dance. Each school had a maypole dance, and then they judged them afterwards. And I can't remember if ours was pink and white or pink and blue, Empire Grammar School, but yours was.
I don't remember the color. I remember dancing the maypole, but I don't remember the colors.
I don't remember the color.
I have a list of the colors.
What?
I have a list of the colors.
Oh, you do?
Mr. Button he was here, but he went to New York and became a writer and played at Carnegie Hall and stuff with piano. But he was out here and I was talking to him as a class of 39, and I talked to him and he gave me all the colors, and I got a copy of the song that they played. So I was very fortunate to get that.
Lento and 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and every school had 2 colors, except for Kermit Grammar School. They had 6 colors of rainbow. But the fun part was after they had done the maypole, then they did it backwards and see if they could unwind it. And if they made any mistakes, it was, he was telling me this.
It doesn't.
And he wrote a book. I have the book, and it tells about the Finland colony.
Oh my gosh.
The book tells about the Vinland colony.
Yeah, all this information.
Right, because that's where I grew up, in that area. They grew up in the Empire.
Yeah, it's quite a story what he wrote.
That's.
Well, Darlene, you were a Hanson, weren't you?
I was a Hanson.
You want to tell us a little bit about?
Right, I'll tell you a little bit about the Vinland colonies that he brought it up, and it was a Swedish colony to begin with, and my dad spent some time in Denmark, and then he came back and started working in the fields, and everyone wanted him to marry a Swedish girl because they were the ones that were available at the time in that area, but he didn't do that. He found a Madeira High School girl. So
Inland School was.
That's the school that we attended. It was on Madeira Avenue and Shaw, right.
That was still there when we.
And our school, just like Empire and Dakota, they had 3 big rooms, and you had 2 classes in each room. And so no kindergarten. And I can remember going to school, and we had a cloakroom. We had to hang up our coats in a cloakroom, and our lunches. And our lunches, I can remember they smelled like egg sandwich. So it kind of tell you in that era, what we ate, It's different than sandwiches today that you send your children to school with. But
when did they stop having the May Festival?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know if Olin knows that answer.
I haven't.
You have
I don't try to remember everything, that's why I write it down.
Right.
Can't remember, but I got it all written down when they stopped and everything.
When they figured out that was a communist Russian holiday, and they stopped celebrating it.
Basically, it's a Cold War type thing.
I don't know, maybe you know a lot of people. It came up about Isabella was a queen, and some areas in that Vinland colony, the predominant families were the Carlsons, and if you can remember knowing Carlsons, and the Ballack family too. And they settled along Madeira Avenue, and they had like 3 homes there that were the Ballack homes, and then the Carlsons had homes along Madeira Avenue in that area. And so another interesting thing I thought was when we were in elementary school, we had a release time for religious ed. You know, they don't have that anymore in schools, but I went across the street or the canal, and we went to the Lutheran church for our release time for religious education. And then Father O'Hara came out in his big Lincoln and picked up the Catholic kids. And so he had a big car, I believe it was a Lincoln, if I remember right, and he filled it up with the kids that went down to Kerman to St. Patrick's for release time. So that's something that's very different than it is today. So, but,
Okay, any questions of Darlene?
What nationality woman did your dad marry?
My mother's from half German and half English and Irish.
Oh, okay.
My grandfather was full German on my mother's side, yeah. And my grandmother
And were
was.
they here originally, or did they come to California?
No, my mother came from Iowa, and they settled. It's really interesting how she came. She was 9 years old, and my grandfather had sold his ranch in Iowa, and they came in a car, and it was a help me out, Louis, the 1926?
No, it was way before. It was a Model T touring car
That's what it was.
that they drove all the way from Iowa. And
It was my mother, she was 9 years old, and she came with her mother and her father and an uncle. And they came across, and the first oil road they came to was in Bakersfield, California. And they were headed to Chowchilla. That's where my grandfather had brothers living there. But she had a diary of what they did, and they followed the railroad tracks a lot of the way, and then they would camp, and they would camp in people's yards. And so,
How long did it take them, do you know?
I don't remember right offhand how long
it's
it
probably in that book.
It's in, I have all that.
That would be quite a trip.
Yeah, it was quite a story. But anyway.
Well, Jim, I know you're a transplant, but you've been here a long time. Can you tell us?
I've been here since 1959. I started teaching at Kerman High School. Met Janet. She was teaching there when I came. And we married in 1962. I taught, after we got married, I got a leave of absence from the high school to go to Temple University to get my master's degree. And then we had a son while we were there. And since then, we've had another son and a daughter. And I taught at Kerman High School from 1959 until 1994, 36 years.
You taught me algebra, and before that, algebra was, I don't know what this stuff is. You know, A equals B and all this type of stuff. I didn't know what. And I was in his class for just 2 weeks, which I transferred. But I was in there for 2 weeks, and by the end of the 2 weeks, I go, oh, I understand now. Just 2 weeks, you got me on algebra. So I thought that was fantastic. I knew what algebra is. I still remember.
What year were you in school?
I graduated in '64.
Okay.
So, and I think I was in the class, I think it was in your class either 63 or 64. And I think it was 64. Mr. Arntz was in Mr. Arntz's class of business law. And that's where I went over to business law, learned that. So, but I learned enough algebra and I know what's going on now, so I don't.
Very good.
So, good teacher.
2 weeks.
2 weeks and I understood, not 100%, but I knew what was going on.
How many children do you have, Lou and Darlene?
We have 2 and 2, 4 kids. And One's here in Kerman, one of the sons, another son in Fresno, and oldest daughter is up in Reno. And the joy of our life is Christina, we called her Tina Marie, and she graduated here in Kerman, then went to Long Beach State and got a degree, and then stayed there and got her master's, then went to Madison, Wisconsin, and got her doctorate, and she's now an assistant professor, no, an associate professor at Ohio State. She's a audiologist. We drove back there in June and had other sightseeing, but she had it set up to go to the college. They had the boy that was, or a young man I should say, that was in his final year to get his doctorate in the hearing and speech department of the college. And anyway, she had it set up that they put me in the box and gave me a complete hearing exam. And so anyway, he wrote it all up and mailed it to us, and I took it in to the audiologist in Fresno that I go to, and he fixed me up with some brand new hearing aids. And he only charged me $6,000.
That story well.
Whoa.
Okay, questions, suggestions, thoughts, ideas?
Mr. C, what was your favorite subject to teach out of all those years in high school?
Geometry,
Geometry?
but I liked them all.
Ms. Root, she was Miss Root to me. Yeah, Miss Root, that's what Miss Root meant. She was the English teacher, and what was English, right? Yeah. How long did you teach there?
5 years.
Just 5 years, that's all? Oh my goodness, I thought it was more.
Well, that wasn't the end of your teaching career.
No, but,
Okay,
yeah.
so I was curious because I remember being in her class with Miss Root. And then I heard she got married, and I thought, whoa, she ain't Miss Root anymore. I called her Miss Root so much that that's what I know her by. So.
Jim, what year did you start teaching there?
59, fall of
And
59.
the math teacher there when we were in school was
Mr. Lloyd.
Now, who was there between Mr. Lloyd and you?
You'll have to ask,
Stiles,
oh, yeah.
Keith Stiles.
Who was it?
Keith Stiles.
I never knew him.
I didn't know him either.
The Historical Society of Kerman, just down the road from us, where we grew up, was the Shuey family.
Yeah.
And it was a Harry Shuey and whatever, but anyway, his son Earl Shuey, who was in the community, we went to his 100th birthday party in January, I believe. But anyhow, it was interesting. I was talking to him, and he looks like he's 90 or less, whatever. He had just gotten his driver's license renewed for 5 years.
He's real sharp, isn't he?
Yes, he is very.
Very sharp.
His first wife was Catherine Woods, if I remember.
Catherine, yes.
And then he married Gene Hurley's wife. Gene died, and he married her.
Okay. Didn't know her.
He worked for a telephone company.
The little lady across the street from us, Mrs. Bowditch, was like a grandmother to us. I don't know what I've done with the papers. Janet had a bunch of papers from back when they fight over raisins in the area, and they at that time they lived just an eighth of a mile east of us, and they went into Fresno to one of these organization meetings to try to get the price of raisins up, I guess. And anyhow, the people from Fresno, they set the hoods out and burned their house down.
Oh, my.
So that's why they moved a house in across the street from us. But anyway, it was really neat. Well, I guess she died in 1953.
all over raisins?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of blood and tears
I guess.
back in those days.
And I had copied this from a book of people from Fresno County years ago. I copied it, and it was about Mr. Bowdish. And then tonight, or this afternoon, I went online and I found that I could find even more than this online.
About Mr. Bowdish.
Uh-huh.
Percival.
And, yeah, and you can find just about any of the old timers. You can look them up and find all about them.
Well, we have certainly enjoyed the stories and the tales we've had from the people that have come to chat with us. And do you have any more things you'd like to add?
One thing I would like to
Interesting
know.
thing about the raisin industry was the boards of trustees that went back into at least the time we were in school, and even when I got on the board, I'm not sure when you got on the board that way, if you started school before the last week of September, they'd shoot you. Because all the kids had to work in the raisins, and so school never started until almost the last week of the month.
AJ, that's true. And when I was on the board and we filled the cafeteria because people were really upset about that. They wanted their boys to help in the harvest, and they want to start late, you know.
And that's all gone now.
Yes, I know that's all gone, but
But anyway, what I started to mention a while ago, there's a great story to go on our website about Frank Von Flew. And I don't know if how many of you know this story, but Frank, as an 18-year-old young man, ran from Los Angeles to New York.
That's right.
And I can't remember what place he came in, but there was a race then in Madison Square Garden, which he came in second, and he won some money. And the story goes that, I'm not sure if it's in, this story is all on the internet, and we ought to pick this up and put it on our own, because this is a Kerman man who was exceptional. And but that is really quite a story. If you look it up, Frank Von Flew on the internet, you can read the story on there, because it was done by one of his daughters.
Amazing what,
Go ahead, too.
They had two daughters.
Yeah.
it's been amazing.
The other story that I think would be interesting to have someone here, like Louis and his wife, is someone from the Russian community.
Yes.
Because I have a chance to talk to them quite often, and there's a lot of early history where, you know, their folks came from different parts of Europe, and some of them were from the Armenian region of Europe that the Russians were in, and but anyway, a large number of the Russian students went to a school on the corner of Nielsen and Shasta called Hawkeye.
Okay, that's
And I don't know how many of you know about the Hawkeye Grammar School, but I sure didn't know anything about it until probably within the last 10 years. And but part of that school is still there.
Isn't it used by a Russian church yet?
No.
Not Sunset. Hawkeye has been the building's been remodeled to house.
What's left of that is on the corner of Nielsen and Shasta. Right.
Who is this Russian man you're talking about?
Well, I think Ivan Nazarov would be a good one to.
Who?
Ivan Nazarov.
I think Morris Provorov wrote a book.
Oh, did he? Morris?
It's in the library here, and I think it's in Sun Empire Library.
Yeah, I don't know if Morris would do it, but
Yeah, I think he would.
Morris has called me already wanting to know about the Historical Society, and I thought he was going to start coming.
well, he'd be interesting because he was in school.
Yeah.
I think he's in my class or your class. I had him,
class.
yeah.
And Janet's.
Yeah.
Along Morris, I want to just tell a little story. Blockade for the Queen, we sold penny apiece for a vote. And Boris and I was the leaders, and my girl was the Davis girl, and she won, beat Morris out. I can't remember which Davis it was. Joyce Coffey, yeah.
Joyce or Juanita?
One of the other.
Those of you that know Morris, talk to him a little bit, because he did call and ask about the Historical Society. This has been several months ago.
I'll try to go see him.
And see if we can't get him here. Jim?
When I came back from Philadelphia getting my master's, the photography teacher at Kerman High, Mr. Thompson, retired, and I taught it for several years. And when we moved from the old school, they had many 16mm movie films made through the years. And then the year that we moved from there, I filmed a big role of the last year in the old school. And we gave those to I can't remember who we gave them to.
Do you have
Your
any
husband
knowledge of
had
that?
those, didn't he have something to do with those? Your husband?
When we
those
first came
films?
back,
You gave
and I think Sofrino was the principal, but they put together a film of that and they showed it in the cafeteria. And I know Bud Miller was there, and he remembered. But they showed this film, and they had a lot of movies from when they built the gymnasium that's up there. If you've driven up north on Madera Avenue, our neighbor has really cleaned up the old high school site and been working on the gymnasium. That anyhow, that showed movies. They were up on top of the building that burned, and taking movies while they were building the gymnasium, and that would have been in 1940, I guess, 41, somewhere in there.
If I remember right, WPA built that building, the gymnasium.
I don't know who built it, but
I'm
anyway.
pretty sure. So.
AJ and I both played basketball in
It
it.
showed lots of pictures of football games. One showed Harry Peterson being a yell leader.
Yeah.
And
That's what I asked her if she knew. What happened to them? No one has any idea what
No.
happened to those films?
I don't know. If anybody would know, it would be you, Jim.
well, we gave it to somebody,
That's-
Chamber of Commerce or...
The senior class at the time was supposed to make a film and then sell it to get money for their class, and that was the end of it. The only one that Sofrino might know, Dan.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was the principal at the time.
Yeah.
Dan Sofrino? Well, we need to do some asking. Anything left?
Yeah, I remember them showing it to
And
We went to that.
who was putting it on.
Well, like Louis said, Dan Sofrino was there, and people of the community came to
Yeah.
identify people in the films, but we have no idea what happened to the films.
Owen? Nothing about that, huh?
I've heard about the films, and but I did just a smidgen of searching and have come up with nothing. But I'll delve into it a little deeper, see what I can come up with.
Yeah. Well, do we have any other business before Cap to thank you for coming and hope you
Hope it wasn't too boring.
I have one question for Louis. How fast could you run the 100-yard dash? You run fast.
Not fast enough. I only 10.8 was the fastest I ever ran a 100-yard dash, and that was slow.
I thought you did better than that.
We had a coach who was a track person when he went to the University of California, was named Lee Angelich.
Right.
Yeah.
And the story that Lee always told was that he set the world record running their hurdles. And the only problem was the guy in front of him also said it.
That's a cute story.
My brother Joe, in the newspaper, it had the fastest man on the team, a football team. So maybe he was faster than Louis.
No, no way.
Well, this summer, we had an opportunity to visit with an exchange student that lived with us back in 69-70 from Iceland. And Billy still holds the record of kicking the longest kick at Kerman High.
I'll be
But
darned.
he turned out to be a professional soccer player too, and kicking was his specialty, so that was kind of fun. Any other business or things? We thank you so much for coming. We always learn some more things. And, I'm hoping that next month we have Kate Session lined up to come. He wasn't ready this month, but he has agreed to coming next month.
He's not in jail?
No, I don't know that part.
No, I was just...
So, again, thank all of you for coming. I hope you enjoyed it, and what else do we have to say?
and they-